Here with a guide to ammo in DayZ. I'll go over bullet damage, bullet speed, spawn points and more. So in DayZ it is the bullet that does the damage, not the gun. For example, an AKM will do the same amount of damage as a BK rifle. Obviously each weapon have their own advantages and disadvantages, so if you want to see a video on what weapon is the best, let me know down below. Anyway, back to the ammo. See, we have 12 types of ammo in DayZ with .357 coming in the near future, and also this does not count the tracer variants. Each of these ammo types have a unique health damage, blood damage and shock value. The values we are going to be using in this video is for a bullet hitting a unarmored player in the chest at close quarters. Obviously armor will reduce the damage, so it is important to remember these values are for chest shots, as headshots do significantly more damage, whereas shots to the limbs do barely any. So let's start with the worst ammo in the game, the .380 ACP, a common early game round which is borderline useless. The .380 ACP is used in the IJ-70 and CR-61 Scorpion. The initial velocity of this round is 290 meters a second. This makes the round subsonic as it does not break the sound barrier. This means that it will not make a cracking sound when leaving a gun. The speed of sound is 343 meters a second, making every round excluding .380, .45 ACP and 9x39 round supersonic. This velocity is then affected by the air friction of the round, which is minus 0.00143 a second. The air friction is the rate at which the round slows down as it travels through the air. This in turn decreases the damage of the round. When travelling at or above its optimal velocity of 290 meters a second, it will deal 21 damage to the health of a player. It also deals 100 blood damage and 33 shock damage. It is important to note you have 100 health, 5000 blood and 100 shock. For a more in-depth guide on the health system, watch my medical guide linked below. The .380 round has a penetration value of 0.8. Penetration depth is determined by the value multiplied by the velocity of the round at impact to calculate the depth in millimeters. If the round decides to ricochet instead, it has a deflection angle of 30 degrees. You can stack .380 into 35 and the round can be found in police and residential spawns. So this brings us on to our next round, the 9x19mm, another common early game round which is used by a fair share of weapons, the CR-75, Glock and MP5, with more 9mm weapons still to be added to the game. The 9x19mm has an initial velocity of 360 meters a second, which is then affected by the air friction of the round, which is minus 0.003 per second. When travelling at its optimal velocity of 360 meters per second, it will deal 26 health damage, 100 blood damage and 33 shock. With a penetration value of 0.8 and a deflection angle of 30 degrees. You can stack 9x19 up to 25 and can be found in military, police and residential spawns. Our next round is 12 gauge buckshot, a unique round found in the game which, when fired, spreads into 8 smaller pellets with an initial velocity of 370 meters a second, which is in turn affected by the air friction of minus 0.00675 per second. Assuming all 8 pellets hit when travelling at its optimal velocity of 370 meters per second, it will deal 34 health damage, 100 blood damage and 33 shock. With a penetration value of 0.5 and no deflection angle, meaning buckshot cannot ricochet. It can stack up to 10 and can be found in farm, hunting, police and residential spawns. Our next round is .45 ACP, a slow moving bullet with an initial velocity of 260 meters per second. This makes it subsonic. The 45 ACP is used within the Colt, FNX and UMP. Its velocity is then affected by the air friction of negative 0.00145 per second. When travelling at its optimal velocity of 260 meters per second, it will deal 34 health damage, 100 blood damage and 33 shock. It has a penetration value of 0.9 and a deflection angle of 30 degrees. It can stack up to 25 and can be found commonly in military locations. The next round on our list is the 7.62 by 39mm round, which is shot by the AKM, SKS carbine and BK rifles, having an initial velocity of 740 meters a second, which is then affected by the air friction of negative 0.00143 per second. At its optimal velocity of 740 meters a second, it will deal 55 health damage, 100 blood damage and 66 shock. It has a penetration value of 0.9 and a deflection angle of 10 degrees, can stack up to 20 and is found in farms, hunting, military and residential location. Used within the AK-74 and Baby AK, we have the 5.45 by 39mm round with an initial velocity of 880 meters a second, which in turn is affected by the air friction of negative 0.00027 per second. So at its optimal velocity of 880 meters a second, it will deal 55 health damage, 100 blood damage and 66 shock. It has a penetration value of 0.9 and a deflection angle of 10 degrees, can stack up to 20 and is found in military locations. Next we have the 5.56mm round used in the legendary M4A1 and the AK-101 with an initial velocity of 1000 meters a second, which is then affected by negative 0.00105 air friction per second. At its optimal velocity of 1000 meters a second, it will deal 55 health damage, 100 blood damage and 66 shock. It has a penetration value of 0.9 and a deflection angle of 10 degrees, can stack up to 20 and is found in military locations. Our final subsonic round is the 9x39 used within the VSS with an initial velocity of 320 meters per second, which is affected by the air friction of negative 0.00055 per second. At its optimal velocity of 320 meters a second, it deals 55 health damage, 100 blood damage and 66 shock. It has a penetration value of 0.9 and a deflection angle of 20 degrees, but it is important to note that the 9x39 has an armor piercing variant. This does not affect its base damage but does change its penetration value to 1 and its deflection angle to 15. It can stack up to 20 and is considered very rare and can be found in military locations. The same goes for the armor piercing variant, however it is even more rare. This brings us on to the big boy rounds. First we have the rifled slug, turning any shotgun into an absolute machine with an initial velocity of 420 meters a second, which is in turn affected by negative 0.006 air friction. However, at its optimal velocity of 420 meters a second, it will deal 110 health damage, 100 blood damage and 100 shock. Having a penetration value of 1 and no deflection angle, the slug can stack up to 10 and is commonly found in farm, hunting, police and residential locations. Now the .308 twin round, another crazy strong ammo type used within the M70 Tundra, the LAR and the Blaze, with an initial velocity of 740 meters a second, which is then affected by minus 0.00085 air friction. So when at its optimal velocity of 740 meters a second, it deals 110 health damage, 100 blood damage and 100 shock, with a penetration value of 1 and a deflection value of 10 degrees. This round can stack up to 20 in your inventory and can be found in hunting and military location. So finally our last round, the best round in the game but only slightly, and I'll explain why. The 7.62 by 54 round shot from the Mosin and SVD is a beast of a round with an initial velocity of 790 meters a second, which is affected by minus 0.008 air friction. At its optimal velocity, it deals 110 health damage, 100 blood and 100 shock. Has a penetration value of 1. This is where it is better over the .308 round. While they both share the same penetration value, the penetration is calculated by multiplying the penetration value with the velocity on impact. The 7.62 is faster and suffers from less air friction, meaning it will always have a higher impact velocity than the .308 when shot at the same distance, which then affects the penetration depth. Similar to the .308 round, the 7.62 by 54 has a deflection angle of 10, can stack up to 20, and is found in farm, hunting, military and residential spawns. So that concludes my guide on ammunition in DayZ and R. Did I forget about the .22? Well, maybe if it wasn't so fucking dog shit I would have bothered to include it in the list. Anyway, I'll be doing a guide on which armor is the best and how it affects damage, so make sure to subscribe for more DayZ guides and gameplay videos.